My name is Ben Flavell. I'm a hobby game developer from Geelong, Australia. I recently made Hacky City over a weekend for Shenanijam 2019. Hacky City is a miniature city building puzzle game. Buildings are chucked towards the city, and it is your job to rotate the city and put them where you want them to go. You get points by stacking them on top of buildings of the same type and putting them next to other buildings of the same colour. The game ends when you can't place any more buildings and one falls off the edge. I've had this idea to make a game based around a little diorama that you rotate so you can see all sides of the environment. I used that style and an idea for a little strategic mobile city building game. My initial idea was for the player to rotate the city and to take their time to see all the different angles and decide which was the best place to place the next building. The final piece of the puzzle was the graphical style, which is something I'd been experimenting with for a little while and was a perfect fit for the game. The graphical style I used was a way of imitating 3D graphics by stacking sprites on top of each other. This style has been around for a little while. I first saw it used in a prototype called Neum by Moppin, the creator of Downwell, and it has been used by a number of other developers in other prototypes and jam games. It works by breaking down a 3D model into horizontal layers and then drawing them on top of each other in the direction of the camera. The reason for using this style is firstly because Game Maker Studio is not typically well suited for 3D games, and also because it's quite a striking look in its own right. I've been experimenting with the style for quite a while now. I made a number of prototypes, and I used it as the main character for another jam game, so I felt confident enough to use it as the primary feature in this jam. Here's how I did it. First of all, I made the models in a voxel modeling program called Magica Voxel. Then I used a program called Vox to PNG, takes the voxel model and converts it to a strip of 2D sprites, which can be used in GameMaker. Then I import them into GameMaker, ready for use in the game. There's a few ways to display these sprites in 3D. The main issue I found with most of them is that it's very difficult to make sure the objects are getting drawn in the right order. The way I overcame this was to draw all the objects layer by layer. So I'd get all the sprites that would be on the bottom layer and draw them, then I'd get all the sprites that would be on the next layer and draw them, and so on. This way, I can draw them in any order and there won't be any clipping. My initial vision was for each building to require a bit of thought to work out where the best place to build it would be. However, I was running out of time and there weren't any mechanics in place to make the decision meaningful, just placing towers next to other towers of the same colour. So, I decided to pivot to a more arcadey style of gameplay and have the buildings be built automatically on a timer. This changed the gameplay and feel of the game in a way that, in my opinion, doesn't quite match the rest of the design. However, it was still fun and the game still looked how I wanted, so I went forward with it. Not that time restrictions left me with any other choice. Changing the gameplay to a more arcadey, real-time style meant that it felt a lot more frantic, like a score attack game. I never designed the game to go on infinitely. You were supposed to build a nice looking city and then finish that round. This led to a mismatch of expectations. The arcadey gameplay suggested that your goal is to play for as long as you can and get the highest score, but the city's size limit meant that no matter how good you play, you're always going to fill up the city and lose. I would have liked to explore different ways to make it play endlessly, but was again restricted by the time limit. So I finished the game in that style, and I received a decent amount of feedback. People were impressed at the art style and could see my vision for a laid-back mobile game. The main complaints were to do with the unresponsive controls and, as I discussed, the mismatched expectations for unlimited gameplay. Still, the jam results were quite favourable. I came in 7th overall from averaging all the categories, but in the specifically voted overall category, I came 2nd. So I'm very happy with the result. I plan to continue development and turn it into a fully fledged mobile game. I'm going to explore different ways to make the arcadey style of gameplay feel better, or I'll try out my original idea for a more laid-back, strategy style of gameplay where you take a few seconds to consider each building placement. The style without the time pressure is more suited for a laid-back mobile setting because you aren't pressured to focus all your attention on your game and can take it at whatever pace you want. I've already tested an idea where the buildings push back the buildings they bump into. This makes each decision a bit more strategic as you have to consider the knock-on effect of the buildings behind it. And instead of losing the game when a building falls off the front because you don't have room for it, it ends when you push a building off the other end without completing it first. This means you have to consider each placement a bit more because it has a knock-on effect on the buildings behind it. This adds a way to clear the board once you've completed a building, and adds a bit more complexity to make the decisions more interesting. I also have some ideas for a progression system. The city will start out on a more constrained grid with a smaller building height limit. Then, after each game, you'll earn currency from all the completed buildings you've built, and can spend it towards increasing the city size, the building height, and unlocking gameplay features. I've also considered a mode where you go around the world and build cities with famous buildings from major cities. I hope you found my look back on my project interesting. Please subscribe if you want to see more updates from the project as I release them, as I plan to continue these devlogs with development. Also, follow me on Twitter at rubber_poop if you'd like to see GIFs of gameplay features that I'm messing around with. Thanks for watching.